If you enjoy hearing these eerie tales and want more to help you drift off or keep you up at night, don't forget to tap the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Bloodbather. Once a year, my parents had me take a blood bath. It was always on the day before my birthday, a tradition I didn't enjoy, but never questioned. My mother would lead me to the tub, my father sitting on the edge, dipping his fingers in to check the temperature for me. I would sit while they washed it into my skin and hair, making sure that I was completely covered before letting me get out. Then I would have to wait as it dried, making my skin feel tight and sticky. I was then sent off to bed with a hug and kiss. On my birthday, the first thing I did was shower off, watching the red retreat down the drain. Then it was like any other birthday. Singing, presents, and cake. It never crossed my mind that our tradition was abnormal. I was excited for my 10th birthday. The prospect of having 2 digits to my age was exhilarating to me. I'd been homeschooled my whole life, but had plenty of friends in my neighborhood to invite to my party. I was asking my friend Jimmy if he was going to be able to come when I caught a glimpse behind the veil. "Ah, man, I have to go visit my cousins on Saturday. But maybe I can play with you the day before?" he had asked. I thought about it, but knew that my annual bath was due that day. Disappointed, I explained to him why that wouldn't work. "Shucks, that's the day I have to take my bath," I told him. "Okay, well maybe after that." "No, I'll be all sticky. Plus all the blood gets on everything." I could tell by his expression that I had said something wrong. He went running his mouth to everyone, calling me a vampire and upsetting both of our parents, albeit for different reasons. That night, I had the first discussion about the bloodbaths with my father. He sat me on the couch and got real serious. "Now, Ben, today will be the last time you ever talk about the baths you have to take," he stated sternly. He went on to explain that not everything we did was considered normal, and that by keeping it to myself, I was doing us all a favor. After that discussion, I became more curious. It was intriguing to me that not everybody had to take these baths. As I aged into a teen, I started doing what all boys do. I rebelled, and hard. Since I didn't go to school, I tried even harder to fit in when I was around my friends. I smoked, I vandalized, I stole alcohol from my parents. Some of it could be attributed to peer pressure, but a lot of it was my own choices. I wanted a reputation, wanted to be revered as some sort of anarchist. So I kept pushing boundaries, creating a large wedge between my parents and myself. The eve of my 16th birthday, I decided that I would refuse my bloodbath. I was lying on my bed listening to music and reading when my mother came in to tell me they had gotten it ready for me. I knew it was coming, had my response ready. "I'm not taking it," I said, refusing to look up from my book. "Ben, please don't make this difficult. You know you need to," she said, wringing her hands fretfully. I continued to ignore her as she pleaded. After a while, my father came down to see what the delay was. "What's going on?" he asked, appearing in the doorway. My mother told him the situation, his face turning bright red. "Ben, this is happening one way or another," he shouted. I threw my book across the room. "Oh, you think so?" I fired back, instantly bristling to the challenge. His eyes widened and his nostrils flared out. He was more angry than I had ever seen him. "That's right," his voice now becoming a growl. Without a second thought, I charged at him, knocking him aside and running down the stairs. I could hear him screaming at me all the way past the driveway, begging me to return. I ran for a long time, finally running out of breath and resting near a city bus stop. I sat down for a few minutes, aware of a strange sensation at the ends of my fingers. They felt tingly for a bit. Then they started to feel hot. Terrified, I watched as they began to blister, running up past my knuckles and cracking open the skin on their way upward. Howling in agony and shocked by what I was seeing, I fell to the ground and writhed. There wasn't a soul around. My cries for help went unanswered as the skin kept on bubbling and cracking, making it all the way up to my elbows. Headlights appeared in front of my eyes. Though I was nearly blind with pain, I recognized my father's car. He leapt out, grabbing me under my armpits and pulling me into the vehicle. I kept screaming during the drive, showing him my disintegrating arms. We drove at a breakneck pace, my father cursing the whole time. His face white, he told me to hold on a little longer, that I would be okay soon. I expected him to take me to a hospital. When we pulled into our driveway, my entire arms and shoulders looked like raw hamburger meat, the skin blistering around my neck and down my sides. It was the most intense agony I had ever been in. My body went into shock. I vaguely recall being carried out of the vehicle, my mother running out to help. We went up the stairs, both of them grunting under my weight. Then blackness took over. Voices around me, swirling distortedly, started to come back into focus. Gradually, the sensation of pain seemed to lighten. My arms were no longer on fire. "He was this close, this fucking close," my father was saying, sounding like he was going to break into sobs. My mother hushed him, telling him he had done a great job, that he had saved me again. I could now feel that I was in a familiar substance, warm, inviting, soothing to my blistered skin. The bloodbath. When they noticed I was awake, they both broke down, telling me how worried they had been, how they could never live without me, that I was their entire world. Their hysterics got me going as well, realizing how awful I had been to them over the last year. They both held onto my hands as I let the blood saturate and heal my mangled skin. The next year I had learned my lesson. My father prepped the tub for me, giving me a half smile as I thanked him after he told me it was ready. I never asked why I had to take them. I never asked where the blood came from. It just seemed like something that we all knew was better off left alone. Which brings me to this year. My father, who is now in his 60s, sat me down again. "Ben, it's time you understand some things." He went on to explain that late in my mother's pregnancy with me, she started having complications. She was on bed rest for a while, barely able to move. She delivered me 2 weeks before her due date, slightly underweight, but very sickly. He explained that he could do little for me, but watch as doctors and nurses did their best to keep me alive throughout the next months. I felt helpless. "I begged to trade places with you and take the suffering you were going through from you," he told me, reaching forward and taking my hands. There was this man. I had seen him at the hospital often. He saw what we were going through, our family, and he offered me something, told me he knew a way to help keep you alive. I didn't want to hear it. I told him to leave me alone, but he persisted, claimed he was an angel of sorts. As you got sicker and sicker, closer to death's door, he kept telling me he could help. I shook my head. This was a lot to take in, all new information to me. My father continued, tears spilling from his eyes as he went on. "Ben, I was desperate. I loved you so much I couldn't lose you. I gave in, asked him to help. I begged, told him whatever he had to do it. He smiled at me, told me he would save you. And just like that, you started to get better. I was shocked, the doctors even more so. We went home. You were healthy. It was a miracle." He wiped his eyes, leaned backward, trying to gather his thoughts, then looked at me. "It was just before your first birthday when I saw the man again. It seemed like he had come out of thin air. He said the only way for you to stay alive was to give you your baths each year. I didn't believe him at first, but then we saw what was happening to you, to your skin. It was just like what happened when you were turning 16, only then it was much slower." He spoke shakily. "So I did what I had to do. I spilled the blood. I filled the tub, and I have done it each year since. I'm sorry, son. I wish things had gone differently," he finished. I leaned forward and embraced him, having no words for the situation. We stayed like that for a while. Eventually, he broke it off, facing me again. "Ben, there's something else. You know that I'm getting older. The time will come, maybe sooner than we think, that I won't be around anymore." He bit his lip, holding in his emotion. Ben, when that happens, you'll have to start filling the tub up yourself. I booked a cabin in the mountains. The previous guests left a strange entry in the guest book. I moved to Seattle from Kansas about 5 years ago. I'm one of those tech bros. All you locals are always complaining have ruined your city. Well, I guess it's my city now. Sorry about you. One of my favorite things about the Pacific Northwest is the mountains. I try to get away from the city as often as I can. So when I found this cabin on the Skycomish River, I decided I would treat myself to a midweek getaway in the early fall. I arrived this morning. The cabin was very cozy, tucked away among the trees next to the riverbanks. There was a hot tub on the back deck and Wi-Fi for us tech bros who only like the facade of roughing it. I put my bags on the bed and decided I'd explore inside before I explored out. There was an extensive DVD collection, but mostly romantic comedies and family movies. Magazines from 5 years ago littered the coffee tables. In a little nook in the bedroom, I found a basket containing a few notebooks and local travel guides. The notebooks were, according to the labels, for guest notes. I smirked and laid down with the most recent one. I'd probably get a kick out of this. It was mostly what I expected. People talking about their kids and their dogs and how much they loved the hot tub and the river. Pretty boring. I flipped through the book until I got to the most recent entries. It looked like the last guests had written a few pages. https www.instagram.com olgugu 10/10/2020 p.m. The noises started around 8:30 tonight. At first we thought it was just the rain. We never should have read that book we found in the woods. My eyes widened and I looked more closely at the page. This was a little bit more interesting than the white bread entries before. Well, maybe read is the wrong word. There wasn't enough in any language we understood to actually read. It was nothing but weird symbols and grotesque drawings, except on the very last page, which read in English. When darkness overtakes the day, that's when old Gugu likes to play. Teeth so sharp, eyes so red. Once you see him, you're good as dead. Okay, pretty weird, but whatever. These noises, though, we thought it was dripping rain, but it isn't the right cadence. It sounds more like licking, and every so often there is a crunching sound. Maybe it's just our imaginations. We aren't used to the forest after all. It's so dark and quiet, so every sight or sound seems magnified. As I was closing the curtains in the bedroom, it looked like something was standing at the riverbank. Something vaguely human, but with large horns and big wings folded behind it. My husband says it was a tree. When I looked back, it was gone. Time for bed now. I hope I can sleep. The noises haven't stopped. I chuckled. Clearly someone was getting into the Halloween spirit and having some fun with it. Still, I looked up and through the window in the bedroom at the raging river beyond, and I felt a little uneasy. The sun was starting to set, and the big picture windows did give the impression that someone, or something, could be watching from the woods. I got up and closed the curtains before continuing reading, just to ease my mind. October 11th, 2020, 7:45 a.m. The bed in this cabin is wonderfully comfortable. My husband slept like a rock. I, however, kept dreaming about a horned creature standing at the corner of the bedroom, staring at me. My husband said it was just a dream, but when I got up this morning, all of the curtains were opened. My husband says he didn't touch them, and I must have left them open last night. But I know I didn't. At least the noises have stopped. We plan to enjoy the hot tub and relax today. October 11th, 2020, 2:10 p.m. We spent the last hour in the hot tub. Very nice, but I kept seeing something darting among the trees. Even back inside, I feel like I'm being watched. My husband thinks I'm going crazy. Maybe I am. Yeah, I think you probably are. Maybe drink some beer and chill out. This page had started out with the same neat, tight writing of the entry before, but as the page went on, the writing became larger and more erratic, slanting across the page. The last entry on the page was the most haphazard looking. October 11th, 2020, 8 p.m. The noises are back, but now there's chanting too. My husband says it's the neighbors, but it isn't a language we know. I see glowing red lights in the woods. I'm afraid to close my eyes. My husband says I'm overreacting. I don't think I can trust him anymore. Chanting? Now I was really sure this was a joke. However, I strained my own ears in the quiet of the cabin and listened. The sun had definitely gone down now, but it was still raining. I could hear the dripping outside. Maybe if you were losing your mind, it did sound a little bit like licking. I admit that I gasped when I turned the page, even if it was all a joke. The next pages were barely legible, scribbles and symbols and nonsense. I will try to write it the best way I can for you. December 10th, 2020, 8 a.m. I'm supposed to go home this morning. I can't believe I stayed in the wads all by myself all weekend. All of this alone time mode me a little paranoid. I'm pocking the book I found. It is still wet for some ryosan, like it has been in the Rowan all weekend. On second thought, I don't think I will leave. I want to stay here forever. I want to become one with Ol Gugu Yun. The bottom third of that page was just odd symbols that I had never seen before. The next and final page was simply Gugu written over and over again, covering the entire page. I rolled my eyes and closed the guest book. Very funny people. I got up and tossed it back into the basket with the other books, then rifled through them to see if there was anything good that I missed. Maybe something better than this fake monster story. Behind the travel guides was a small leather book that I hadn't noticed before. Curious, I picked it up. It was strangely wet, like it had been in the Rowan all weekend.